take other calls, so I'll have to talk to one of the other parties. So I'm going to call Sue Moroney's.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, in this debate about the budget for education, the national government contribution is that they would have you believe that what they're concerned about is children who are not achieving. That's what they've said the problem definition is. How come John Key's solution was to increase class sizes? How on earth could increased class sizes actually help children achieve better in terms of their education? It's just a ridiculous proposition. And the New Zealand public smelt it from a mile away. They didn't need official advice. They didn't need the spin doctoring. They understood, and New Zealand parents especially got this straight away. There was an absolute nonsense for that government to try and pretend that increasing class sizes was somehow going to improve education and somehow going to have those children who are not achieving in education now suddenly achieving. Well, it was a complete nonsense, and everyone knows it. Everyone now knows that that government doesn't know what it's doing with regard to education. They also know that it is not a priority for this government, and the government cannot put that genie back in the bottle, because even though they backed down because of the pressure that came on from parents, every parent in New Zealand now knows that that government believes that increasing class sizes is the thing to do to improve our children's education. Well, they got it badly wrong, and they got it so badly wrong that New Zealand families now know that this government is out of touch with their aims and aspirations. Because the sorts of aspirations that New Zealand families have is for better quality education. And I want to focus on early childhood education because that's where it started with this government. This government cut the funding back in 2010 to qualified staff in the early childhood education sector. That's exactly where it started from. And Louise Upps is pretending that they didn't, but the budget documents show $400 million of money cut from early childhood education from qualified staff. It was the funding bands for qualified staff that actually was the first victim of this government. And it happened in early childhood education, but it's not going to stop there, Mr Chair, because that was just the beginning of that government saying that they don't believe in having qualified teachers in education. They fundamentally don't believe that. And now they got away with it in early childhood education, and they're now putting that into our compulsory education sector via the Trojan horse of charter schools. But it did start in early childhood education. But it's got even worse for early childhood education in this current budget that we're debating here today, Mr Speaker, because they have not inflation adjusted the fees for early childhood education. And what is that going to mean? What it's going to mean is that fees are going to increase for families. Parents are going to pay all over again because of that government's folly, because they cannot see how important quality early childhood education is to New Zealand families. They were actually warned about this. They were given official advice about this. They were told, and I'm going to quote now from budget documents that have been released recently by the Ministry. The Ministry said not providing a universal cost adjustment may lead to providers taking a further opportunity to increase fees. These fee increases decrease the affordability of early childhood education for families with the largest impact on priority groups. Now, by priority groups, what they meant was Māori and Pacific Island and low-income families. The official advice was that this year's budget would actually adversely impact on that very group. So I don't want to hear any more from that side of the House and the government getting up and pretending that that's where they're putting their energy and their efforts, because the official advice actually shows them up for what they are. The official advice is that not inflation-proofing those fees for early childhood education will impact on those very groups. But that's after those groups have already had an 11% increase and their costs for early childhood education just in 2011 alone. So this is a cumulative effect for families. They've already had their costs increased by that government, not by the recession, not by any other mechanism, but a decision of that national government. The fees for early childhood education increased by an average of 11%. And now they're going to increase them by more with this year's budget, Mr Speaker. An average of 11%, by the way, means that some families are paying 25% more and some families are not.
The question is that vote education stand part of the schedules. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that vote Education Review Office stand part of the schedules. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that Pacific Island Affairs stand part of the schedules. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that arts, culture and heritage stand part of the schedule. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that vote Attorney General stand part of the schedules. Those of that